The budget audiophile in the year 2024 is almost spoiled for choices, and at the top of the list for 2024 budget audiophile speakers is the Elac Debut 3 series, the DB63 bookshelf speaker. But should you buy it over the existing 2022 model, Klipsch RP-600M? Came out in 2022 at $650, so it seems like kind of a stupid comparison between a $450 speaker and a $650 speaker. But the Klipsch RP-600M version 2 has been on sale for most of 2024 for $500, and I have even seen it recently as low as $375 or so. So at that price, is this an all-in-out better speaker than the Elac DB63 and you should just buy this? Or does the Elac at $450 at its full MSRP actually compare favorably to the what used to be more expensive Klipsch? Well, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click that notification bell at the bottom so that you are notified when I do other videos like this, and let's get into it. Well, first of all, the Klipsch is a much larger bookshelf speaker, being a whopping 15 and 13/16 inch tall, 8 inches wide, and 13 and 1/16 inch deep, and weighing 18.1 pounds. And then the Elac is a much more reasonable, like normal sized bookshelf speaker, being about 13 and 3/8 inch tall, 7 and 3/4 inch wide, and 12 and 1/4 inches deep, and 17.3 pounds. So that's one of the first really interesting things that you'd notice about these two speakers is the fact that the Elac feels like a much more densely built speaker, because the Klipsch is relatively a not much larger, but relatively a larger speaker in general, and it's only 0.8 of a pound heavier. So when you do the knock test, I don't know how well that's going to come through in the microphone, but the Elac just sounds like it's a bit more solidly built of a speaker. Probably has more internal bracing inside and stuff like that. I don't really feel like when I was doing my listening tests, I heard much of a difference as far as like cabinet resonances inside of the speakers, so it kind of really isn't making much of a difference. But when you're spending all day moving these speakers around, swapping which ones are on your speaker stands when you're doing your listening tests, it almost feels like the Elac is the heavier speaker because of the fact that it's smaller and it's not that much lighter. Now, getting into kind of the tech specs of the speakers, driver complements actually extremely similar. Both of them having 6.5 inch woofers, both of them having 1 inch metal dome tweeters, and both of them being rear ported design speakers. But the actual intricacies of these drivers and the ports and stuff like that, that's where there's some pretty noticeable differences. Like the Klipsch, the woofer on here, Klipsch calls this their cerammetallic woofer. It really is an aluminum woofer with an extremely thin layer of ceramic material over the aluminum cone, because that's supposed to reduce like breakup modes and stuff like that in the woofer, reducing resonances and stuff like that. On the Elac, you've got a 6.5 inch woofer that is made out of aramid fiber. A lot of people would call it carbon fiber. It's very similar material, very, very light, very stiff, and very like non-resonant. It's actually pretty surprising to see such an exotic material woofer in such a budget speaker. And then the horn on the Klipsch is kind of what they're most well known for, and that has a 1 inch titanium dome tweeter nestled in the back of that horn. This has a very shallow waveguide with an aluminum cone or aluminum dome right there, and then there's this plastic phase plug that goes over the front of the tweeter to essentially make sure that when the tweeter starts playing higher frequencies, essentially when tweeter domes start playing higher frequencies, the tweeters have a tendency to beam when they get up to the really high frequencies, like 10K plus. That little design right there is essentially meant to make it so that those frequencies, instead of just emanating from the tip of that dome and beaming straight out, they hit the waveguide here or the phase plug and kind of spread out. And that actually makes a really, really big difference in the sound staging and imaging characteristics of the speaker. And then looking at the back of the Klipsch, you see their trademark Tractrix horn that they're actually using for the rear port nowadays. They didn't used to do that a couple of generations ago, but now they're doing the Tractrix horn for the port and for the horn on the front of the speaker. And then they are bi-wireable. I really don't see very many people actually taking advantage of this feature, but if you really want to, you can bi-wire your Klipsch RP-600Ms and RP-600M version 2s, basically every speaker in this range. And they are using what feels like pretty high quality hardware here. The banana plugs nestle in there pretty snugly. They don't feel like they're gonna pop out. And yeah, they give you nice wire jumpers that go from the positive low to the positive high and the negative low to the negative high. Like pretty good quality stuff back here for the level of expense that you're gonna be paying for these types of speakers. And then on the back of the Elacs, you've got pretty much just your standard plastic flared port and just a single pair of 5-way binding posts. And these are very nice feeling solid metal binding posts, but my one little niggle about these is the fact that your banana plugs don't go in very far, and it does feel as if like something were to run into your speaker cables or put any little extra tension on your speaker cables, you could snap off a banana plug with it sticking more than half of the way out. But it's not that big of a deal, especially if you don't have like small children or pets. But if you do, that is one thing you might want to pay attention to, and you may switch to spades or bare wire versus banana plugs if you're going to buy these guys. Okay, yeah, I can hear what you're all saying, but what do they sound like? So tonally, they're actually pretty close. I was actually expecting there to be a much larger difference than there actually was between the two. And when you look at the graphs, you'll be like, how is that possible that those graphs look so similar? A lot of it, especially in the bass region, stuff below around 300 hertz, is because of my room. But you'll see at the very low end of the graph, there is a little bit more bass energy coming out of the Elac. And then once you get past around 1 kilohertz, the lines do kind of diverge and they stay separate, where on the Klipsch, you're staying a little bit above the reference line. I ran these at 75 and 85 dB, and the Klipsch in that, you know, upper mid-range all the way through the treble region stays just a little bit higher than the Elac does, and the Elac stays just a little bit lower than the reference line of 75 and then also 85 dB. And I didn't do 95 dB like I did when I did like the KEF Q Concerto Meta versus the KEF R3 Meta video review. If you haven't watched that video, I will link that one at the end of this video so you can go watch that. But I did not run these at 95 dB because I could hear them starting to distort and give up when I ran a frequency response sweep at 90 hertz or 90 dB. So I didn't want to run 95 because I didn't want to run the risk of damaging the speakers, because I do buy these speakers myself. I'm too small of a reviewer to get anything sent to me by manufacturers. But 75 and 85 dB, you can see they pretty much respond exactly the same, just, you know, linearly like louder. But the Elacs, they're a little bit more bass energy and a little bit more laid back in the treble, upper mid-range and treble, and the Klipsch is going to be a little bit more forward with a little bit more energy in the upper mid-range and treble. And surprisingly, even though it's a larger cabinet, a little bit less bass. So basically, when I was listening to mostly like modern folk type music with these two speakers, the sound quality of the Elacs, I feel like, lends itself a little bit better towards that genre of music. And then also EDM as well, because of the punchy bass that you get out of this speaker. The Klipsch still does make some really good bass, but surprisingly, even though this is a smaller speaker, it was punching a little bit lower and harder than the Klipsch was. Now, what I would say there's actually a bigger, more noticeable difference in is something that you can't really see with basic graphs like what I am capable of measuring. I'm pretty sure there is a way of measuring soundstage and imaging, but my basic equipment is not good enough to do that. But the way that these speakers render soundstage is completely different. So the Elac, this speaker disappears. It essentially creates a soundstage that takes up the majority of the front of your listening room. The speakers aurally disappear, and you just are awash with this huge soundstage. But it's also a very vague soundstage. A speaker at this price point, or maybe it's this tweeter design where it has that phase plug that kind of spreads out the information. I don't know exactly what the scientific reason is, but this speaker really doesn't give you much of a like phantom center image. It kind of just gives you like vocalists sound like they're coming from like the entire front of your room. The Klipsch, on the other hand, when you have them towed in pointing directly at you, you can get a very good phantom center where this vocalist will sound like they are locked in the center of your room, and you'll hear some instruments coming from the left speaker, some instruments coming from the right speaker, but they also don't really disappear that well. You can get it sometimes, but for the most part, you're gonna essentially just hear three positions. You're gonna hear left, right, and phantom center from the Klipsch. I think it's the horn design, the way that it's essentially throwing sound straight at you out of that horn, but it doesn't really aurally disappear. So neither of these speakers are what I would consider like hi-fi when it comes to the soundstage and imaging that you're gonna get from them. They're kind of each one is like an extreme in one direction or the other. Like this one is just extremely vague and just a big wide soundstage. This one gives you these precise like left, right, and center, but it doesn't spread the sound out in any way. You're not getting like sounds that sound like they're coming from the sides, like beyond the plane of the speakers with these. So neither of them is perfect, and obviously at the price points that these speakers are at, you wouldn't expect either of them to be perfect speakers. But now I will cut in just a little bit of like sound tests so you can see if you can hear the difference between the two speakers. I'm gonna make these audio clips a little bit shorter than I usually do because people have said that they're boring, and I think that's probably a major point where people are tuning out of the video. But some people appreciate it. And also, please listen to headphones. If you're listening to this and you're saying that you can't hear the difference on your laptop speakers, that seems like it should be pretty obvious. You're not going to hear the difference on laptop speakers. If you have any kind of IEMs or halfway decent over-the-ear headphones, use those for this portion of the video. Otherwise, it's probably not worth listening to and you can just skip past it.
Catch me if I fall. You sip wine, I drink straight. Don't waste time to my place. I feel my heart race. So catch me if I fall.
So, conclusion time. Now that you've seen the graphs that I made and listened to the little audio demos that I made, which speaker do you think is better? I mean, if they're both priced at the same price or $50 apart, I would say it just kind of depends on your preference because they both have positives, they both have negatives. These guys have a very wide, vague soundstage. These ones have a much more narrow, precise, but like non-orally disappearing kind of soundstage. These ones are a little bit more laid back. These ones are a little bit more forward. It's totally up to you. I mean, for my preference and what I just probably smacked my microphone. For my preference and what I normally listen to, I like the richer, more lush sound that I get out of the Elacs in the type of music that I usually listen to. It just kind of seems a little bit better. I feel like if you're using either one of these for home theater, they're gonna be fine. They're both pretty easy to drive. And that's actually getting me to something that I should have put in the beginning of the video, is the impedance and sensitivity of the speakers. Elac rates these at 6 ohms and 87 dB, which from what I could see when I was measuring them, seems pretty much spot on. Klipsch, on the other hand, are calling this an 8 ohm speaker. It might even be a 4 ohm speaker, but it's at least more like a 6 ohm speaker. And they also say it's 94 dB efficient. Yeah, not in any kind of universe where reality makes any sense is this a 94 dB speaker. This speaker is only 2 decibels more sensitive than the Elac, so I would say if Elac's calling this a 6 ohm speaker at 87 dB, this is a 6 ohm speaker at 89 dB sensitivity. So the Klipsch is going to be a tiny bit easier to drive. So if you are using a very low power amplifier, that might be another reason for you to buy the Klipsch instead of the Elac. Or if you can find that same deal that I saw on Amazon a couple of days ago where these were going for $375, then that's another good reason to snap those up. But either way, they're both great speakers. My preference is for the Elac, and that's pretty much all I have to say about it. So if you like this video and the style of video that I do here where I'm reviewing speakers and I'm not using the fancy audiophile terms like saying that the Elac has a more gossamery tone to the mid-range. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, honestly. So if you like my style of video reviews, then share this around a little bit. I'm trying to build this channel up. I should have over 1,000 subscribers by the time this video goes out, or like the day of putting it out, it probably will be. But yeah, like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell so you can be notified when I actually am able to put out the SVS Ultra Evolution bookshelf speaker review, because that's the one I am working on basically alongside doing this review. I put out the unboxing video last week for the SVS Ultra Evolution bookshelves. But yeah, get subscribed to the channel, like the video, subscribe it, share it around, do all the things that you do for the YouTubers that you want to see more of, and you will see me in the next one.